Alright guys, we're here for the Goku Black breakdown. Let's go ahead and take a look at what they cooked with him. Vegito Blue, whoever let them cook, they cooked. But let's see if they did the justice for Goku Black as well. We got a yellow Saiyan Future PO Future Trunks Saga. His Z ability is double defense, which was to be expected since he had a defense-oriented kit as well as he's a defense type. He has Tag Future Strike Attack though, which is a little mid. I think he most likely this Goku Black's going to be working with Turles, so you would prefer the Strike Attack to be Blast, but not a really big deal breaker there. Just another double defense ability running alongside Turles, who never gets to have any offense abilities. His Strike card does not have any Blast armor, but that reduces enemies' health restoration on hit. And his Blast card also has no special properties, but every time he uses it, he restores his own health when he uses it. Special move, inflicts heavy bleed on hit. Massive explode damage, 30% special move, 100% chance to inflict bleed. If his gauge is full, he resets it to 0, and on activation, he will nullify endurance effects. 30% health restore debuff, but only for 5 timer counts, and he gets an additional 30% damage. Nothing too crazy, but having base before even transforming endurance null is pretty nice. Special move, or special green card we're looking at, on activation, 10% health. Type neutral for damage sustained for 10 timer counts. And it counters most forward charging special moves, tap attack strikes. Gets 4 new cards if you have 3 or less, so he gets a full hand on it. Gets 50 key, 30% damage, but it is not permanent, so that was one of the things we were speculating, is that maybe he like stacks damage and like builds up. He does not have that, he just gets 30% damage, which is still a good amount. Reduces enemy vanish gauge, but only once. Reduces enemy key by 100, but only once. And inflicts enemy with 3 subcounts only once. So a very, very minuscule strike-based version of Super 17's green card. But this is, again, also base black, so maybe Rose has something crazier. His base is infinitely worse than Vegito Blue so far, but let's see if he has something that makes up for it. Transform into Super Saiyan Rose, restores health by 30%, key by 50. Nullify enemy special actions that activate when changing cover for 10 counts. So nothing too crazy on main, no vanish restore, nothing like that. He just gets cover null for 10 counts. Then when he is starting the fight, he gets 150% damage, 70% cut, 70% cure recovery, card draw, -5. And for 15 timer counts, the enemy cannot do any cover changes against his team. Pretty short on the timer count there, only 15, but that is a very powerful ability, just making it to where your entire team doesn't need to worry about cover changes for 15 timer counts. But again, most characters do have built-in cover changes, so you're not going to see too much value out of this, I fear. But it's not a horrible thing to have. When he enters the battlefield, he gets 1 card if he has 3 or less, restores health by 15% up to 3 times, not bad. Activation count is shared before and after transforming on that. Restores ki by 30, 70% damage inflicted, 10% reduction to impact and slice, not bad. Nullifies own unfavorable elements for damage sustained for 10 timer counts. Okay. Minus 20% to the enemy's special move power, and whenever he lands a Striker Blast Arts hit, he gets 30% damage for 10 timer counts, and restores ki by 30. But this only activates once. Okay. Cancels enemy buff effects when they activate ultimate arts. We saw this on the thing, and he has 5 shortened subcount while he's on standby. For only himself though, but he doesn't have any sort of endurance as far as we know so far. Does he have type neutral somewhere else? He has it on green card, right? Yeah, so he has it on green card, and when he comes in, he has type neutral. So a lot of defense type neutral that he has in there. He has a strike cover change. When his own health reaches 0, he does have endurance. So that will play into him having the -5 sub count if you pair him with characters that cancel buff effects. Also, his own canceling of buff effects. He destroys all of your enemy's cards when his endurance pops as well. Greatly charges on unique gauge every time when hit with an enemy's art attack while he's on the battlefield. When his unique gauge is full, he restores health by 20%, shortens ally subcount, randomly destroys 2 cards, reduce 50 key, and reapplies that 15 counts of no cover changes needed. That is pretty powerful. That is a pretty powerful gauge if he is able to take a hit, which so far he doesn't look like anything too crazy when it comes to taking a hit. He has like pretty standard stuff for most like defense units nowadays. When the enemy switches characters while he's on the battlefield, he gets 5% health back. A couple of good debuffs there. And after the enemy attack is over, he restores 20% of the damage and gets 30% damage for 15 timer counts cannot be cancelled. That damage stacking could go very insane depending on who you're fighting. If they're dumb enough to like tap blast you, tap attack you a lot, that could scale very heavily. Now we have Super Saiyan Rose, who has a 100% chance to hit Extreme Bleed and Blast Armor. His Blast card now has a damage debuff, but it no longer heals him. Special move does massive impact, 30% damage, gives him Vanish back once, nullifies Endurance for free. On hit also gives plus 10 to cost 100 chance to inflict bleed. If his unique gauge is full, it'll reset it to 0, give him 30% damage and the health restore debuff from earlier, so nothing too crazy there. You kind of just use it to reset the gauge. That's really the only purpose of this special move, both pre and post. Same thing with his green card. Applies the volume effect itself on activation, randomly draws 1 card, 50 key. On hit, he gets 20% damage, covered null for 10 timer counts, and minus 50% to health restore. If his unique gauge is full, he gets an additional 10%. 15% cut penetration is pretty solid as well. That is definitely the better use, is to go for the green card over the blue card, because the blue card just gets like 30% extra damage, and this health restore debuff is borderline useless. Whereas this, getting a 15% cut penetration on top of cover null for 10 timer counts will scale very well, and also just shorten sub counts is nice to always have. Main ability, we're looking at drawing a special move arts, restores health, charges unique gauge. Does he get, okay, he doesn't get a green card on here, just a blue. Cancels own attribute downgrades under normal conditions, and type neutral for 10 timer counts. Pretty good main. Nothing too crazy though. And when he transforms, he gets 40% damage, 60% key recovery, 20% own health restore for 30 timer counts, which is very nice because he does have a lot of healing built into his kit. When he comes into the battlefield, he just gets a card, still has a 15% healing that will carry over from his base. The 10% right there, type neutral for damage sustained. This now goes up to 40%. This was 30% earlier when he lands a hit. Still has the same effect here with buff canceling. He does keep his endurance as well, even in post, if it hasn't been popped. Knocks back to long range. His gauge has similar effects, but slightly different. He now, I think, destroys a Dragon Ball as well, which I don't think was an effect that he had in base. Let's go ahead and take a look. Yeah, he didn't have the Dragon Ball destruction in base. He does have that now. 25% health. Nothing too crazy. I think he just gets the Dragon Ball destruction twice with his gauge. And if the enemy switches, same effects. When enemy attack is over, slightly higher numbers. Yeah, massive gap between Goku Black and Vegito Blue. Massive fucking gap. Goku Black doesn't look like a bad unit, but he doesn't look like anything too crazy. He's probably around the bottom of top 10, like around 5 to 8 probably. But he doesn't look anything too crazy right now looking at his kit. His stats don't look anything too crazy. We'll see when he comes out if he performs better in use, but as of right now, he just looks like a defense character with a couple gimmicks, potential to do some good damage. But other than that, nothing too crazy. Nothing too crazy, especially when we have characters like freaking Turles as defense types, man. It's like, alright. But that is it for Goku Black. Let me know your guys' thoughts. Peace out.